Time now for a Sioux Falls real estate update with Brent Baker from Clients First Group and Keller Williams in Sioux Falls. Hello, sir. How are you?
I am well.
Excited to have you here, and Bella is back as well. Bella's got a pretty cozy spot right by the desk here.
She has found a new home in this new office.
Well, when she first came in, she was sniffing my garbage can. I'm glad Heidi's not here, because Heidi would have said, "What's in that garbage can?" Maybe it's a wrapper from something I wasn't supposed to be eating.
Never happened.
I
Never
don't know. Bella's going to get me in trouble. So, now we're going to talk about since it's a Sioux Falls real estate update, talk about real estate. And you hear about like a seller's market and you hear about like a buyer's market. And the headline of this is, are we heading into a balanced market? So what is is that like a little bit of both, like buyer's market and seller's market?
Correct. You're in that transition period between one or the other. And, it's essentially a 5 to 7 month inventory. So if nothing added to the market today, would it take how many months to sell?
Yeah.
And so obviously in a seller's market, there's very little inventory, so everybody's competing. And in a buyer's market, we have the reverse. We have so much inventory that
you have your pick.
You kind of have your pick. You're not under pressure. You can negotiate a little more. And, everybody has a little resistance when the market's not in their favor.
Yeah.
But we are in that transition period where we're seeing the inventory starting to stack up a little bit. Yes, from week to week it might vary a little bit, but overall, what's the trend?
So does that mean that like everybody wins a little more? Because like in a buyer's market, if you're selling, that's maybe not quite as good. And in a seller's market, if you're buying, that's not maybe quite as good. But if it's kind of balanced and you're buying a home and you're selling a home, you kind of maybe don't do too bad on either side is the way I look at it.
Correct, because, you're always doing so if you're selling a home, you're buying in that very same market.
Yeah.
And so people think, like a few years ago when the market was absolutely bizarre and wild, okay, if that person's selling, well, they did really great. But if they're looking to buy...
It's like you're looking at me here, Brent.
Just remember...
We did exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so
4 blocks up the road.
You got a premium for that house, but now you're going to go buy at a premium price too. And, so you got to be aware of that. Timing the market is just really, really hard to do, and it's not wise. But we have kind of moved from that seller's market slowly to the buyer's side. So now the seller doesn't have as much leverage as they did. That the buyer can now be more selective.
Yeah.
So that means the seller has to have their house in shape. You can't get away with what you did. But the buyer still has to be some reason there, or the seller's just not going to sell. There has to be a motivation on each side, some benefit for each party.
So what are some of the shifts that are happening that makes it more of a balanced market rather than a buyer's market or a seller's market that kind of brings us into the middle ground here?
Well, obviously, we went through that period there where there just wasn't enough inventory. Everybody was trying to buy a house. And so the inventory just couldn't keep up. And then, as that has changed, and also a couple of factors, at that time, interest rates were really low, which also drives home sales. Another part of that was we had the COVID effect going on, so people wanting a bigger home because they're spending more time together. They need their space. Working from home, we've talked about in the past, so they needed space just for an office. And what I predicted back then was buyer burnout is going to come.
Yeah.
They have bid on 4 houses, got their butts handed to them.
Yeah.
At some point, they're just going to walk away. And now that market's going to shift simply because buyers have had enough.
I remember in 2022 when we sold our home and we had given ourselves 2 months for closing so we could find a home. I remember in the middle of that, we made an offer on a house, and it was a ridiculously stupid offer because we were just to the point where we're like, I just want it done. Mm-hmm. And we made a really dumb offer. And I even posted on Facebook that night. I said, made an offer on a house. We're probably going to get it because we offered way too much. So the next day I get a call from a friend. He's like, so congratulations in order. Did you get the house? And I said, no, somebody was even dumber than us. And we didn't get it because, when you're talking about, buyer burnout, where we were at a point where we flat out said, I think maybe we're going to just rent something. Mm-hmm. And then, as luck would have it, we found a home that was 4 blocks from the home that we had been in. And we love our home. We love our neighborhood. And Brent, you did a great job of helping us get everything all put together.
It's hard when you're in the midst of it to keep your head and to realize, and you guys did, but it's really hard in that because you feel like you're under pressure.
Yeah.
And the important thing is to remember that this is a business decision. Yeah. It's an emotionally driven business decision. So it's really important to think it through and understand that sometimes there's a reason.
Yeah.
I had somebody I've known for many years competing for a house this last weekend. Yeah. And it's a great home in a great neighborhood, a sought-after neighborhood. The house was a little dated, but for these 4 adults, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And they didn't get it.
Oh.
And I was probably more bummed than they.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, why don't we go look at this?
Yeah.
They, as of last night, they got the deal.
Nice.
And they're extremely happy. And in fact, you can feel the joy in their voice.
I love that.
They are happier with this house, even though it's smaller. They're happier about it.
And that is why, when it comes right down to it, you need to have the right real estate agent that's helping you, because whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, or if what we're talking about now is more of a balanced market, you can have somebody like Brent Baker on your team to help you make the right deal at the right time that's right for you. Doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, hey, this is a good time to sell. Well, maybe you're not ready to sell. When's it the right time for you to do it? If there is somebody that's sitting there right now going, I think maybe it's about time for me to do this. Kids just left for college. I got all this extra house that I don't need. It's time to pull the trigger. How do they get a hold of you, Brent?
605-310-0297 or brentbaker@kw.com.
Very nice. And you can find him online at his website, clientsfirstgroup.com. And if you're catching the end of this, you can always listen to the podcast version as well at siouxfallspodcast.com.